Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I got Logan with me. Logan, how you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been interesting juxtaposition between, the highs of my team winning a title finally and all this great stuff going on and then all the negative Xbox news today. So it's kind of interesting balancing both of those, but I'm doing pretty good. How about you, man?
Yeah, it's been a decent week. I will say this for people tuning in live and listening to later. People may know that the show is normally on Tuesdays. For some reason, I am ungodly sick at the minute. Don't know what the hell happened. Basically, on Monday, like Monday evening, I just randomly got nauseous and like really sick. I don't know. I don't know if I've caught a bug or something, but uh, it feels like vertigo mixed with a stomach bug. So like
Oh, that's the worst.
yeah, so like for people who haven't had vertigo before, oof, it is rough. The room's spinning. Typing the title for this, like literally, I'm not even kidding. It took me about 20 minutes. Like I can't see straight. Um, so I'm trying my best, but we'll push on. But next Tuesday, obviously the show will return its normal time. But we have a lot to talk about today. In fact, I typically try and write out the topics list for the show throughout an entire week, and a lot of gaming news typically breaks out on Monday or Tuesday. So normally I get a bunch of topics right before the show goes live. I ask Logan if there's anything he wants to include, and we have the list. The list today looks completely different to how it looked yesterday. We have a bunch of really good topics, positive topics, but we obviously have the nasty stuff. And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat any of it. Like I think layoffs in general are bad. There's nothing really you can say positive against it. I will say this off the bat. I think it's kind of sick how I've seen people online celebrate layoffs, and I've actually seen people put bets on whether it was going to happen or not. That's pretty scummy.
that that's a seriously sick individual to place bets on that.
Yeah, and
Oh.
like I'm not having any of that. So like, I just put it out there. Like, if people want to celebrate that stuff, that's sick, man. But we'll be getting to that later on. Logan, it's been like 2 weeks since we spotted you on here. What have you been playing?
Well, I finally beat Expedition 33 and just my goodness. Like I kid you not, one of the 10 best games I have ever played. It
Wow.
was incredible. Just like just like putting aside like all the content in the game, like the fact that this was the first game this studio ever made is astronomically mind numbing. Like, how is this possible? For this is like the ultimate. Like, if one studio ever made a game this good, this would be like a magnum opus type game. And for this to be your first game, my goodness, expectations on this studio are going to be astronomical going forward, and deservedly so. Like it, it hit all the boxes for me. Incredible characters, incredible story, fantastic combat, beautiful world, just hauntingly beautiful music, and just the graphics. It was visual stunner. And like I said, the story, the writing, the heft of everything. The, not getting spoilery, but basically at the end, you get a choice: one type of ending or a different type of ending, and both leave you feeling like, you know, I'm not sure about that, but in a good way. Like it's like really heavy and covers a topic that is pretty hard topics to cover, frankly, in any medium, let alone a game. And I was just blown away. I legit I hadn't felt I felt like Oppenheimer, like during that one scene in the film when he puts his hand to his face. He's like, "My gosh, what have I done?" Like he realizes the magnitude of what he had done, or Anakin turning to the dark side. Like once I finished the game, I just sat there and I just pondered, like in silence for a few minutes, and like just grasping this game. And I hadn't felt that way in a game in a very, very long time. And like I think probably uh Witcher 3 or Lost Odyssey were like the last story games probably that hit me this hard. So it just absolutely brilliant. It deserves clean sweep of all the awards it can possibly get. Like it is laughable how much of a stranglehold that thing has on any awards for me. And just yeah, I finally finished that, and I've been playing the Altars, which is I'm not a big survival sim guy, but I'm enjoying this one because it kind of makes it a little bit more mainstreamed applied for the crafting and survival stuff mixed with a good story and like branching narratives and like clones of yourself, but from like if I had made this decision versus that decision, like okay, I stayed with my wife or I divorced my wife, like that led to a branch, or like I stood up to my abusive father, or I was a chicken and ran off, and like that leading to different branching narratives and character skills and stuff. Like having all this put into a really cool sci-fi world with a funny little tire spoke of a base that rolls around. It's really fun and I'm enjoying it. Long story short, I've been just playing a bunch of different kinds of stuff. How about you, man? What you been doing?
I've been all over the place. For people that don't know, I tend to take breaks from games I like all the time. This isn't like a new thing I do. I've been doing it since the early 2000s. Like I remember taking breaks with Final Fantasy X for like 6 months at a
Oh
time.
yes.
Right? It took me 2 years to finish that game. Just because that's what I'm like. If there's a game I'm enjoying, I get really engrossed and I put it off for a few months. Like hell, it took me months to finish. I think it took me like a year and a half to finish The Witcher 3. Um, so like I got back to Avowed, really enjoying that. Do you know I only have one negative thing about Avowed I can really say, and it's something that can easily be patched. I say easily because clearly I'm a video game developer. Um, a lot of the achievements are bugged, and it's kind of annoying. So there's an achievement you get if you defeat all the bounties in the game. So each area has, I think, around 6 bounties. Some of them are extremely difficult, and I finally cleared them all. Went to the bounty board poster, and no achievement popped. That is literally the only issue I've had with that game. For some reason, Obsidian, like the only issues I have with their games are achievement related. I mean, that's a good problem to have because, it just goes to show that the gameplay is fun, the story's good, and all that stuff. But broken achievements, it's a bit of a head scratcher. But they are going to patch the game over the coming months, and hopefully that will be there. But yeah, I've been playing Avowed. I got back to Doom Eternal. Sorry, Doom the Dark Ages. Super fun game. Who would have thought putting a shield in a Doom game would be fun and work? And it works, and it's fun. Um, Another game I've been playing, and I've glazed this game to hell, but you know what? I'm going to continue to glaze it anyway. And that is Final Fantasy 16. I cannot praise this game enough. And it's weird because before the game came out, I decided to ignore basically all material for the game because, it wasn't going to be on my platform of choice. And honestly, what was the point of me watching all these trailers? There wasn't really much of a point, right? Uh, and I'm playing it, and honestly, I think this is one of the best games of the year on Xbox. It really is. It's truly a phenomenal game. I think the development, what's the team called? It's like Creative Studio 3 or something. At Square Enix, like they knocked it out of the bloody park. They really did. Like honestly, the action based combat is so satisfying. It's a JRPG that has zero grinding. Zero. And I can't remember the last time I played a JRPG like this, like a big one that didn't have grinding. You know,
Yeah, grind is part of the game almost for all JRPGs.
yeah, and it's none of that's in this game. The fact that you can like transport directly to where you need to finish side quests in like a second. The game respects your time, and it's rare to have that in a JRPG like this. And also the world design. I think we've become so accustomed to open world games that every time a linear game comes across, uh, it's just very refreshing. Like, look at Expedition 33. You have a world map, but it's not open world, and I don't think that, it's not one of these games where you're running around finding collectibles, like, and that's like 90% of what you do in the open world, because the game is linear, and there's those audio logs you can pick up, but outside of that, it's linear. And I think we need more games like this. I love open world games. Most games I do play are in fact open world RPGs. But yeah, Final Fantasy 16. What can I say? It's I don't like to give games scores before I finish them, because games can change. Maybe something happens in the final act. Maybe you have a game breaking bug. Could be any reason, and you can knock it down a point or two. For my experience so far, I'm not even kidding, Final Fantasy 16 is a 10 out of 10 game, which I never thought I would say, because I've only ever gave 6 games a 10 out of 10. And at the minute, if this continues to be good, as it is right now, or get even better, it's going to be, a 10 out of 10 game for me. I have noticed whenever I post footage on Twitter, people reply saying, "Oh, it's Devil May Cry combat." Bit of a controversial take, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I think the combat is way better than Devil May Cry. Some people might not like that, but honestly, it's a great game. We have the first super chat of the day by Ultron Quake. I hope I didn't butcher that name. For $4.99, thank you very much. He says, on a positive note, I beat Final Fantasy 16 after 71 hours. Wow, 71 hours. I think so far I've put in, around 22 hours. My favorite Final Fantasy game in years. Clive is such an awesome character. Right, nail on the head. This is another reason I'm going to glaze this game. So I have been a lifelong fan of Final Fantasy X. Right, that was back in an era where every game was set on a tropical beach for some reason. I don't know why that happened in the early 2000s, but like I love Final Fantasy X. It was my favorite Final Fantasy of all time. But that main character, Tidus, is one of the whiniest characters in the universe. Like every single time he opens.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh yeah, I was about to say, yeah, he needed to be backhanded a few times. That guy was such a white bag.
Yeah, constantly whining. It's like, oh my God, look at me, my dad's a fish. Like, who cares? Stop crying for 5 seconds. But Clive Rosfield in Final Fantasy 16 is possibly the best Final Fantasy character ever. Like, one, cool factor. Literally cool AF. He has cool armor. His moveset's cool. The way he talks, the way he acts, everything about Clive is possibly the best Final Fantasy character. And I know Cloud has had this like this non-stop praise since the 90s. If you play a Crisis Core, you'll go into it thinking, how is this person going to be better than Cloud? I think Zack is better than Cloud. But I think Clive, no whining, is like literally stands up for what he believes in. No cringe laughing, no cringe moments. S-tier character. And it's so refreshing because if you hop from Persona to Final Fantasy to any range of JRPGs, a lot of the male main characters are very similar. They'll whine a lot, they'll complain, and that's kind of part of their character arc as well. But Clive is badass from the beginning up to where I am right now. And honestly, if you've, like, some people have said, JRPGs are cringe. I don't really like that take. I think, some games have, a lot of games have cringe moments or cringe characters. Like Tidus, I love that game. He is cringe beyond belief. like, I like Kingdom Hearts, but that whole game is kind of cringe at the same time. And I'm going to play the next Kingdom Hearts game. But Clive Rossfield, Final Fantasy 16. I'm going to continue to praise this game until I finish it. But for me to put 22 hours into a game like this and think it's a 10 out of 10 experience, it's extremely rare. Really is. We have a super chat by Nick. Thank you very much, Nick W. Yep. For $5, he says, thoughts on the Perfect Dark cancellation. We will be talking about that later in the show. The abridged version, and I have a lot to say on it. It sucks. It's awful. In a sea of endless fantasy games, I need sci-fi. I really do. And last year, that was a shining beacon of hope. A brand new first-person immersive sim sci-fi game, cyberpunk game that screamed, me, right? Again, I have a lot to say. Thank you for the $5, Nick, but I have way too much to say on that right now. When we get late in the show, I'll totally talk about it because that's going to be bulk of the show. But back to I've been playing Final Fantasy 16. Highly recommend people play it. As of right now, it's the complete edition with the DLC is number 11 on the Xbox Store in the UK, and the regular version I think it is around 16. So considering the amount of sales that's been going on recently, you have Wolfenstein at number 2, which was £6 recently. It's doing really well, which you love to see. All the reviews on the game itself are very high. But, Final Fantasy 16 it's incredible. And I'm going to glaze that game for weeks. And if I get that done in the next few weeks, I'll do a whole video review on it. Now, for people that are watching the video, you might see a car driving on screen in an isometric fashion. I've been playing this game, and I had this review code provided to me by Konami. There's a game came out called Deliver at All Costs. And this is a game nobody's talking about, and I think a lot of people should be. It's basically the closest thing to isometric Grand Theft Auto ever. You play as a courier back in the 1950s on this very remote island. It's not really specified where. It's kind of hinted that it's somewhere like Hawaii-ish. But basically, the whole game is physics-based, and everything in the game is completely destructible. Buildings, farms, basically everything man-made can be broken to bits, and you can literally drive through walls to get from point A to point B because it's called Deliver at All Costs, and you're a courier. You have to deliver things on time and unscathed. And in this game, if you want to get from point A to point B quickly, drive through some buildings. However, if you annoy too many people, the police will come after you. There's a very cool story in the game. It actually has cutscenes, which I was surprised by because this is a game made by a small team. I was expecting some sort of comic-style thing going on, but no, fully rendered cutscenes in-game, and it's very good. And we live in a time where Grand Theft Auto-style games don't really exist outside of Grand Theft Auto, but this game, it's so much fun. If I remember correctly, I think it's around £20. But you have this whole big open world city. It's divided into like 8 different regions. You have a mountain area, beach area, main city hub. But you do different quests. There's side quests. There's actually collectibles in the game. You can upgrade your car over time. You can actually steal any vehicle you want and drive around. But you mainly have one vehicle which you can upgrade. But I highly recommend people play it. This is like going to be a part 1, part 2 review type thing. I'll go over the rest of the game later in next week's show. But it is so good. There's a mission early on, actually, that you have to transport 20 watermelons across town. But given that it's physics-based, they can literally just roll out of the back of your truck. So you have to take them from one place to another to get them painted so you can resell them. And basically there's a counter on screen going down depending on how many watermelons has fallen out. It's a super cool game. and it's not frustrating anyway. I think a lot of people are going to like this. There's no guns or anything. Like, it's not Grand Theft Auto in that way. But when it comes to the driving, crimes like that, it's totally like Grand Theft Auto. I think a lot of people will like it. And honestly, I hope we see more games like this. Another game that came out recently is called The Precinct, where you play as a police officer in a what I want to call a isometric reverse GTA style game. It's in that genre of games, and I hope we see more. Indie developers are crushing it right now. And later in the show, we're going to be talking about indie developers versus AAA, because oh my god, a lot's happened this week. But outside of that, I have played some Call of Duty because I'm not gonna lie, as someone that's mainly a single player gamer, I have become absolutely addicted to Warzone, which I never thought would happen. So when we were all stuck in the house during the pandemic, the first we had basically 4 lockdowns where I lived. The first one was 4 months long. That was lovely, and I had Warzone there the whole time, and I could have just been playing that. So in retrospect, yeah, I should have played that during the lockdowns. It would have helped. But that's basically what I've been playing. It's been a busy week, and yeah, let's get into all the news, because despite all the Microsoft stuff today, we literally have about 18 topics. We'll try and get over all of it, but here we go. Now, here we go. Where is this? Oh yeah, we'll get the Battlefield 6 thing out the way. Battlefield has had I want to say an unfortunate series of events over the past, several years. Battlefield 4 launched in an absolute broken state. And, it's a shame because the campaign's fun. By the way, for people that don't know, Battlefield 4 launched in such a broken state on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 that you could not complete the campaign unless you played that whole game in one sitting. The campaign wouldn't save. The netcode was broken, your loadouts wouldn't save. It was a horrible experience. And then when it was fixed a year later, basically everyone stopped playing. And, Battlefield, Hardline came out, I think a year and a half after that. Not many people played it because the cops versus robbers thing wasn't that fun. And the campaign was kind of disappointing. Battlefield 1 comes out, gorgeous game, great gameplay, but about a month and a half after the game came out, people figured out that all you have to do to win in that game is basically play as a sniper. So nobody played different classes, nobody played different tactics, it was just snipers galore. And then Battlefield 5, multiplayer support basically got pulled after a year. They came out with their own version of Battle Royale, nobody played it, and what's the point of playing a Battle Royale game when there's only 6 of you? So they have a whole new team working on this Battlefield game. They have Criterion, which I believe is making the campaign. They have DICE, which is making the multiplayer. I believe Respawn is helping a little bit. And, they plan on having a big Battle Royale game, which is apparently going to copy Warzone. Came out today that apparently the campaign, there's all sorts of development issues behind the scenes, which is unfortunate because, we haven't had a proper Battlefield campaign since 2014. Sorry, no, 2013. So they have a bunch of issues behind the scenes. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the Battle Royale segment. But the positive news is that the multiplayer apparently is really fun. You have fully destructible buildings in multiplayer once again. And it looks like it's even more advanced than what we used to have with Bad Company 1 and 2 back in the day, which was pretty impressive with what they're doing on the 360. But yeah, Battlefield, hopefully we see something official soon, because that game is NDA'd all over the place, but for some reason people keep posting their own clips on social media, not realizing that that is technically illegal. So people should stop doing that. I don't know. By the way, Logan, have you noticed when it comes to video games, people will sign NDAs and just post footage anyway? I think Logan's internet may have cut out again. Logan, are you there? Let's see if he's in the Discord. Okay, Logan, you might have to jump out and jump back in again. Discord issues, it happens all the time. But yeah, that's Battlefield. Unfortunately, the thing is, I love first person shooters. I love campaigns, and we just don't get a lot of linear first person shooter campaigns these days. So like my hopes are on Battlefield being good, but yeah, it's been a bad week for video game news. But yeah, that's Battlefield. Hopefully, we get news soon. It's this evil. Logan was laid off by Xbox. I mean, oh gosh, what a day.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now, Logan.
Okay, good. Like, what were you saying about Battlefield? You asked me about like posting content or something on NDA.
Oh yeah, so like when it comes to Battlefield, and you've probably seen this for other games as well. Battlefield and people people will sign NDAs for tech tests and post gameplay, despite the fact that it's technically illegal.
I have no idea what people are smoking to do that. Like, maybe they think these companies don't have the balls to actually do anything. But, looking at Nintendo and some of these other cats, like, maybe you get away with it with some companies, but you pick the wrong company to start goofing off with, your livelihood is cooked. Just don't be a moron. Honor an NDA.
Yep. I say it all the time. Like, these people wouldn't have the balls to do it with a Nintendo game. Like, no chance in hell. Like, if you were to post Nintendo gameplay before they announced it or wanted you to show it, I'd feel sorry for that soul. Like, you will end up in prison at some point. But hopefully things will change. And look, I want Battlefield to be good. It's just I feel like that franchise has had a rough time. Like everything I said before with the multiplayer of the previous games, the lack of campaigns, the bugs. Like for some reason, ever since Battlefield 3, those developers cannot they don't have a good time making games. And I don't know what it is. And you know what's weird? If you go back to the PS3 and the Xbox 360, right? You had the PowerPC architecture with the Xbox. You had the cell architecture with the PlayStation. And when all of a sudden we all moved to x86, the same bloody thing across the board, developers start having these issues. Like, wasn't it meant to be easier to make games all of a sudden? But, like, this past generation, 2 generations now, just endless bugs. It's hard getting games out. Like, I don't get it. But yeah, that's Battlefield. What a shame. You know what? We'll talk about this quickly because this came out yesterday. So Outriders, which launched in Game Pass, I want to say 4 years ago. It's a game that had a bunch of issues, and I praised the game when I first started playing it because that game is kind of, I don't want to say the term misleading, because before the game came out, and even before the developers showed off gameplay, the number one question these developers were asked was, what's the end game like? And I always shook my head at that and like tilted my head sideways like a confused puppy dog, because people want to know what the end game of this new game was before we saw gameplay. And it was this, I noticed it was a group of basically Destiny fans wanting something else to play. And for some reason, people have this, like, I'm trying not to swear or say certain things today, but, like, people have this, like, enthusiasm to know the end game of a title before it comes out. Like, they want to know what the endless grind is they're going to be playing for 10,000 hours. I don't understand why people think this. But anyway, the game comes out, and I thought it was fun combat. Graphically, it looked great. The performance was great. I don't remember any bugs in that game whatsoever. But the developer said something really interesting before the game came out. He was asked in an interview, what do you do when the game ends? And he said, you take out the disc and play something else, right? Because not all games are meant to be played for hundreds of hours. You can literally just play the game from start to finish, move to something else. And I thought that was really cool. But when the game came out, people kept playing about it. Playing it and talking about it like it was a Destiny game, right? This game where you get endless content over months with expansions and live content, and people just kept asking the developers for this like new batches of content all the time, even though they came out and said it's not a live service game, and it wasn't. Right? Didn't have microtransactions. It had one pack of basically supported DLC where you had some skins, and that was it. So people have the fun with that. A couple of years goes by, and it comes out yesterday that Outriders 2 is officially cancelled. Which is a big shame because considering how good the first game was, and I had my issues with it, but it was fun gameplay. The fact that they cancelled the sequel is so disappointing because apparently they had a lot of success with that first game. And yeah, cancelled. So People Can Fly have cancelled another game. They actually cancelled 2 games. We don't know what the other one is just yet. I'm suspecting we'll find out soon because that stuff kind of just leaks anyway. But yeah, I enjoyed Outriders from what I played. I think, people trying to pretend it was Destiny 2 kind of hurt the game. Like, it was never going to be a live service, so stop talking about it like it's a live service. And I think it was just a lot of people that like those types of games latching on, trying to find something new. Hopefully People Can Fly can have success in the future because they make excellent combat, right? Their first-person combat and third-person combat is so much fun. But, yeah. As far as I know, they are an independent studio. It's just Square Enix happened to publish their last game, but I wish them luck. Logan, did you play Outriders at all?
Yeah, I actually own Outriders. I'm
Yeah, Logan quit out once again. Just talk when you can because I don't know what's going on today. YouTube's had issues all day.
the sequel because
Yeah, Logan, you're botting in and out. I can't hear you. Just try and jump out, jump back in
I
again.
thought made it a better experience. Okay, hold on.
It's okay, don't worry. But yeah, Outriders, I do hope they have some success in the future because they make excellent combat, and who knows, maybe we could get an Outriders 2 at some point down the line. But I feel like, will Square Enix publish their next game because it looks like Square Enix doesn't want to invest any more into live service games. We'll see. And look, even what I just said there, right? I'm talking about it like it's a live service game because that's how much people talked about it as a live service, even though it isn't. But yeah, I think it's a shame. Anyway, we'll move on unless Logan can jump back in. You know what? We'll talk about this quickly because this was good news. System Shock 2, the remaster, finally got a release date. Releases in 2 weeks' time. It was originally scheduled to come out in June, but they had some issues, I think, with certification or something like that. Now, their remaster is, it's done by Night Dive Studios. They are probably one of the best remaster studios in the business. They clearly know what the hell they're doing. And if people haven't played any of their games, just go to the store, search Night Dive. I think you can actually search by developer now. Literally, they fix games that were broken years ago, and I don't know how they do it. They clearly know what they're doing. But yeah, System Shock Remaster 2 comes out in 2 weeks' time. I do hope they'll make enough money from that so we can finally get System Shock 3, because System Shock 3 had a new trailer, I want to say 4 years ago. Like, that game's been through development hell. I think it had a Kickstarter at some point. But yeah, I think people need to pay attention to those games. If it sounds like I'm all over the place today, I'm finding it very difficult to read. I'm so dizzy due to this. It has to be vertigo or something, but I'm trying my best. Oh, here we go. Assassin's Creed 4 Remake. Now, this game's been rumored for like 3 years now. It kind of leaked in a bunch of Ubisoft documents, and let's be honest, basically everything at Ubisoft leaks. For some reason, Assassin's Creed has a target on its back, which is kind of ironic because that game, that franchise leaks with every new entry. Every new entry, screenshots, name, sometimes trailers, and yeah. So basically, I heard several months ago, I want to say about 6 months ago, that Assassin's Creed 4 Remake was scheduled to come out this November. I don't know if that's changed or not, because it will get to a point, and I'm not even kidding, it's going to get to a point where we get multiple Assassin's Creed games each year sometimes. But apparently this is a built from the ground up remake, 1-to-1 remake. So think Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, just with some quality of life stuff, new visuals, enhanced gameplay, and the fact that you can't even crouch in Assassin's Creed 4. Hopefully they've changed that. But anyway, so one of the main voice actors, the voice actor for, was it Haytham Kenway or Edward Kenway, for Assassin's Creed 4, was at some Comic-Con signing, and he basically said to the person who was getting his autograph done, said, "Oh, you're gonna have to replay Assassin's Creed 4 soon," and had a smile on his face. So it looks like we're gonna be getting Assassin's Creed 4 remake maybe this year. For people that haven't played it, and I'm putting this out there, I think Assassin's Creed 4 is the pirate game. It's the best pirate game ever made. It's so much fun, but the only thing that tears it down a bit for me is that you can't bloody crouch. And do you know how weird it is now to play a stealth game where you can't crouch? It's so odd, because in that game you either run or walk at a brisk pace. So when you're stealth, stealth following someone, you're just walking behind them. And I love Assassin's Creed. It's one of my favorite franchises, but when you go back and play basically 1 through 4, it is a bit weird. Just, you're sneaking behind your target and you're just walking behind them. That's it. But, I'm sure those things will be changed, because honestly, if it's the same game, just with those things changed, it's going to be a masterpiece. To this day, it still has the best ship combat in any game. Better than not Sea of Thieves, Skull and Bones. You have on-ship combat. You can swing from one ship to another. You can get outside of your ship and swim to another ship if you want. Well ahead of its time.
Black Flag 4?
Yeah, Black Flag 4. Or Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd be buying that?
Yeah, I'll pick it up. I love Black Flag. I'll definitely pick up a remake.
Yeah, I mean, I am wondering when's Ubisoft actually going to market this or talk about it, because Ubisoft has no showcase plan for this year, none at all. Neither does EA actually. For some reason, those two companies diddly squat this year. But yeah, you know what, Logan? Since we can hear you now, what's your take on Outriders 2 being cancelled?
I think it's a bummer. I enjoyed the first one. I thought it was fun for what it was, but it was clearly a diamond in the rough. Shame we won't get to see their complete vision and what they could do for a second one. But, the franchise kind of had a lot of issues, especially with Square Enix, funding and stuff. So it might be better just next.
Yeah. You know what? We'll move on, because, not unless they show anything about Assassin's Creed 2, or if anything else leaks, nothing else I can say. So I wasn't going to talk about this week, but I'll mention it anyway, because it's been in the news for the past week and a half for the dumbest reason. So there's a movement going on right now called Stop Killing Games. And this petition was started around a year ago. And as of now, you can only vote on it if you're from the UK or Europe. So if you do, sign this thing, and basically, in the European Union in the past, when certain petitions have went through and certain things have changed, it's actually filtered out to other countries. So the reason why iPhones have USB-C ports now, basically, it's because of this European law that was put into effect like 5 years ago. So that's why basically everything is getting USB-C ports, which, in my opinion, it's damn good to have one port for everything. Like, say, no need to have, USB micro thing for one device, USB Type B or whatever for another thing. Like, let everything be USB-C. Well, anyway, so stop killing games. I believe it needs 1 million signatures for this petition to go through. And basically, it's to stop the fact that developers can pull the ripcord at any time. So, this goes to basically every publisher, but mainly Blizzard was mentioned. I think Nintendo was mentioned as well. But basically, you can get a game, and it's wrote in the small print that the developers can basically remove your access from playing it at any other time, right? They can literally say, hey, the game's been cancelled, ironic, but the game's ending its service right now. And basically, this is a petition to get it out there so developers can no longer do this. So once you buy a game, you can play it whenever you want. That's the gist of it. So, like, there's been plenty of times in the past where a game's came out and, maybe it's not been delisted, but, like, the service has just ended altogether. And the game you purchased, you can no longer play. And I'm so behind this movement because I use iPhone games as an example. So, like, Mass Effect Infiltrator was a third-person shooter iPhone game that came out in 2012. And if you purchased that game back then, you can't play it anymore. There's no way to play it. EA pulled the game from the stores, and even if you still had it on your phone back then, it doesn't work on modern iPhones because of the way iPhones work now with old apps. So there's no way to play that game anymore. Dead Space, there was an original Dead Space game on iOS. You can't play it anymore, right? BioShock on the iPad, you can't play it anymore. An original Deus Ex game, you can't play it anymore. What was that game called?
An Alien Isolation game as well.
There was an Alien Isolation spin-off. What was it called? Alien Isolation Blackout or something?
Yeah, it got pulled like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, just stuff like that. It's stupid that we are asked to purchase these games. We don't have ownership at all, and they can pull the ripcord and say, "Hey, you can't play it anymore." But I can't have my money back, but I can't play it. And yeah, so if you live in the EU or UK, sign it because it should go through. I think it needs 1 million votes, and so far I believe it's at 820,000, and it's jumped a couple of 100,000 in the past week. I won't go into why it's jumped over the past week. There's been some drama behind the scenes, but if you like games and you don't want access being pulled at any other time, like another example I saw recently was Destiny, right? So when will they actually keep the service for the first Destiny game up till? Because when that gets end of service or when they sunset the game, that disc you have from 2014 will do nothing anymore. It's a coaster. And this will hopefully stop that from ever being a thing. And, there's been some fake controversy over the past week of people saying that it's to force developers to support these games forever. And it's like, that's not the case. Why can't we have it so we can continue to play these games? Another good example is games with multiplayer PvP, right? So let's say Star Wars Battlefront 2, the one that came out in like 2018 or 2017 or whatever. Wouldn't it be cool if that game had its end of service, you could play that game with bots or on servers managed by fans? Why can't that be a thing? And hopefully this will go through. It will, because once it goes through and a law is put into effect, that literally means it will filter out to the US, basically everywhere else in the world, which means we all bloody win. But again, hopefully it goes through. Like, I can name 1 million games where it's reached end of life and I just can't play it anymore. And it's such a shame. It happens too often. And my God, you have no idea how salty I am about my iPhone games. Back in the 2000, the 2010s, like so many iPhone games, I just don't have access to anymore. But yeah, I keep
Infinity Blade
yeah,
was amazing.
yeah, Infinity Blade. That was so bloody good. Can't play it anymore. Like just I think there was like 3 Infinity Blade games, but can't play any of them. You just have Epic pumping out skins for Fortnite, no new games. Um, but and for people asking in chat, we will get into the whole Perfect Dark thing in a minute. We have like 18 topics, and I like to say this is a mullet style podcast. We have the short topics up front and the long topics in the back. But yeah, that Stop Killing Games. Again, if you're from Europe or the UK, sign it. It'll benefit all gamers basically. You know what? Oh, we'll talk about this quickly. Now, some people might think I'm gonna like this. Some people won't. So it turns out that BioWare from now on is effectively a Mass Effect studio. It looks like EA is probably done with Dragon Age as a franchise. Um, I actually called this last year, and I think a lot of people could have called it. BioWare, they've had some trouble over the past several years, but like Dragon Age has never been the money maker. Mass Effect has. Like Mass Effect has potential to become big budget movies, TV shows. Although there is going to be a big budget TV show, and if they don't get Henry Cavill to be Shepard, they'll hear from me. But still, like basically, BioWare is. It looks like they're done with Dragon Age. Now it's a shame, it really is. But honestly, I'm kind of okay with it. You know, it'll hopefully stop us from getting a new Mass Effect game once every 8 years, right? So I think we all saw the writing on the wall, especially with how after Vanguard, performed. Because from what I did play Vanguard, the gameplay was super fun, by the way. Super fun. But I think that game was not just marred in controversy, but it just had issues. The color palette, the whole tone of the game. If you have gritty, dark fantasy, shouldn't it be gritty, dark fantasy and not this lighthearted thing where everyone's, friends? Like, it had a bunch of issues, but I think the best thing going forward for Dragon Age as a franchise would be to get some outside studio and do a Legendary Edition, because there's no way to play Dragon Age 1 or 2 on PlayStation. I believe Dragon Age 1 is partially broken on PC, and as far as I know, no Dragon Age games are on the Switch. So, like, if they could come out with a remaster collection of the first 3, update the graphics for the first game, which was it was dated when it came out. I think that would satisfy people for a bit. But yeah, it looks like Dragon Age is kind of done. What do you think, Logan? Because I think we all kind of saw it coming.
Yeah, it's disappointing in a way because like I loved Dragon Age trilogy, the original trilogy. Like the story was fantastic. Like I was so into it. Like I went to the website like the Dragon Age Keep or whatever and filled out all the different scenarios that could have happened for your characters to upload it to Inquisition so that my decisions from Dragon Age and then Awakening and then Dragon Age 2 would carry over and make the world as I wanted it for the third one, Inquisition. I loved Inquisition. It was fantastic. I was super hyped for the idea of Dragon Age 4. And then they decided to make a Gen Z Fortnite-ified abomination instead of. This wasn't hashtag my Dragon Age. And it was just. I know some people liked it, but like what they did to the Kunari, what they did to a whole bunch of things that I had issues with. And so I'm not surprised. It's a bummer it's gone, but I understand. And I really hope they nail Mass Effect because it might be lights, camera, curtains if Mass Effect doesn't hit for BioWare. So this is not BioWare of old, but it's still technically BioWare, and it might not be technically BioWare much longer if they don't get this right.
Yeah, you mentioned the Canary, and for people that don't know, the Canary and Dragon Age, they're basically this like uber warrior race that like the best way to put it, they are the Klingons of the Dragon Age universe. Uh, Super cool character designs, and like they butchered what they look like and just how they were in the Veil Guard. And also, honestly, I think the name hurt it as well because beforehand it was called Dragon Age 4, and then it was Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Dreadwolf is way
Oh,
cooler.
such a badass name.
Yeah, it sounds so
Yes.
cool. And then the Veil Guard, but what is that? And the color palette, by the
That
way,
should have been a red flag to begin with,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah, and the color palette, like I don't know why. And we had this issue back in the early 2010s and late 2000s where a lot of movie and game posters had this blue and orange thing going on, and for some
Mm.
reason, developers are now doing this thing where the color palette for the art is basically pink and purple. It doesn't work, right?
It don't work.
It's like if you were to take Lord of the Rings and slap a pink synthwave, filter over it, that doesn't work, right? Fantasy has to be dark and gritty. That's the whole point of Western fantasy. It's dark, gritty, and brutal. Dragon Age was always about being brutal. Hell, the Dragon Age Origins is so brutal. Like you see,
Some
also,
of the decisions in that game are dark.
yeah, like especially the first game. That's such a dark game, but the Veil Guard, like in the Veil Guard's gameplay, I think is bloody great. Like I'm surprised it's not on Game Pass yet, but if people get the chance to play it, honestly, best combat of the entire franchise. But it doesn't surprise me. I do hope they listen to all the feedback and just make the Mass Effect game they need to, because look, we're going to be talking about the studio stuff in a bit. I think BioWare is like half a game away from being axed because look, the biggest game studio at EA now, it's Respawn, right? And even they aren't safe from getting their games cancelled, right? Apparently, their Mandalorian game was almost finished. Like, we almost had a super deep, engrossing Mandalorian game, and it got axed, right? And that was EA's essentially best studio. So Mass Effect, especially with a TV show in the works, like they have to absolutely nail this. But this was I wasn't going to talk about this. I'll talk about this briefly because it's not a video game thing. Logan, did you see who was in the casting sheet for the new Bond?
Um, was it Tom Holland or
Yeah,
was that a joke? Because
no,
I
no, no.
can't tell anymore
Yeah,
for Tom Holland.
that's real. Tom Holland.
N- no, no. He looks 12. You can't have him be James Bond. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like
Like,
I
I
found that.
know he's obviously a lot older than that, but he looks like at most a freshman in college. He can't. No, you can't have him be James Bond. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you know what's funny, right? When I told my mother about this, because she's obviously British and loves Bond as well, she burst out laughing and said, "Wouldn't he need a box to kiss the Bond girls?"
Exactly.
Like, because he is pretty short and Zendaya's way taller than him. But I just want to mention that quickly because like I never face palmed. So I like Tom Holland. Right? I think he's great Spider-Man. But
Oh yeah, he's great. But no, he's not James Bond. He is not suave debonair, like, ultimate, like, macho man dude. Like, no.
yeah, which is why I'm worried about the Mass Effect series at Amazon, because the casting I can only imagine, right? They're gonna get they probably
Tom Holland is Captain Shepard.
if they get Tom Holland as Commander Shepard, I swear like I don't like to swear on this channel. I'll be demonetized because of swearing. But like, just no, get it right. Oh my god! Right, I just want to mention that quickly. Okay, let's move on. You know what? This is a quick story because again, the big topics are coming and they're going to be long. So it looks like we're getting brand new Halo news later this year at the Halo tournament. I can't remember what it's called. I don't really follow esports much anymore. But Halo is having a big, tournament later this year, and we're going to find out about the future of the franchise. Now, we did hear last year that the game is moving to Unreal Engine, which I'm okay with this. Like Unreal Engine, a lot of beautiful games in that engine. A lot of developers are used to Unreal Engine, so like them moving on from Slipspace doesn't really bother me. Uh, Apparently, there's multiple Halo games in the works. Honestly, I might get hate for this. Like, I love Halo. I've loved Halo my entire life. I think Halo having a remake is kind of unnecessary. You know, Halo came out with the Xbox at launch, and then we've technically had a remake. By the way, this is one of the reasons why the topic annoys me. Halo Reach Anniversary is technically a remake, right? They remade the game with a different engine's assets. Therefore, it's a remake, right? Cutscenes, redone, everything. Remake. You can switch between the engines as you're playing, right? I've never heard anyone use the term correctly. It's a remaster in a different engine. It's not a remaster. It's a remake. It's semantics, but I just want to see a continuation of Halo Infinite, right? I love the gameplay. I like where the story was going. And honestly, I think the grappling hook in Halo is fun. But anyway, it looks like we're getting a big Halo update later in the year. I'm excited. I mean, according to Phil Spencer, we are going to get Halo next year in general. So for Halo, Gears, Forza, and Fable all dropping in the same year, that's pretty exciting. Logan, what are you wanting from Halo, and what do you think we'll see?
What I think we'll see is Halo reboot of the first one. What I hope to see is a Halo Infinite sequel, because I don't think another remake is necessary. We already had a remaster on the 360, and then they put up another res on the Master Chief Collection. And I know they're porting all their games to everywhere now, so everybody needs to get to experience Halo from the beginning. You could just port the Master Chief Collection. You don't have to waste time rebooting or remaking the first Halo again as some shameless cash grab and send it to other platforms. Like, I get it, they did it for, so they're probably doing it for Halo. I just don't think it's necessary. But you know what? Xbox does a lot of things I don't think are good or necessary lately. So, um, it is what it is. I hope it's a Halo Infinite sequel, but I guess we'll find out. Either way, hey, at least Halo Studios wasn't affected today, so we know what they're working on is still there. So that's good news.
Yeah. I but like when it comes to like Halo Infinite sequel, we went into Halo Infinite thinking we were going to get expansions, because I don't play multiplayer, so like I haven't had Halo content since 2021. Yes, that's my own fault for not playing Halo multiplayer, but that ship has sailed. Right, outside of Warzone, I do not do multiplayer in any capacity. I'm kind of done with it. Um, I like my little safe space of single player games. Maybe I'll have to change at some point, but yeah. You know what? Let's get into the bigger stuff now because this is going to be a doozy. Wow. You know what? Before we get into the whole studio thing, I want to go over what was going on online about 2 days ago. So, Mikey Barber, from who used to work for Microsoft twice, um, just randomly put out, saying, "Hey, Microsoft should stick to basically just making games and publishing them." And then someone that used to work for Microsoft over a decade ago basically said that Microsoft are exiting the hardware business. Now, this is where things don't make sense because, look, we joke behind the scenes about how Microsoft keeps stepping on rakes because they'll have some amazing good news, right? They'll have some really good news. The fan base is celebrating, such as the Summer Showcase, which I think was S tier. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, there'll be bad news, right? Good news, bad news, good news, bad news. So all of a sudden, it felt like there was like multiple people in the industry randomly attacking Microsoft based on nothing all of a sudden. So Stein from Twitter basically had to post that, yes, we are making more consoles. And, he shouldn't have had to have done this, but unfortunately, this keeps happening. So he posted, Microsoft are making next-gen consoles. Then people were bringing up that, hey, Xbox and AMD are working together on PCs. That came out of nowhere. So people were trying to find whether Microsoft have actually said the word console or consoles. And turns out they have multiple times. Just people forgot all of a sudden. So yeah, they had to clarify once a bloody again that consoles were coming. And honestly, it's tiring. Have you seen that meme from the Green Mile? I'm tired, boss. That's how I feel right now.
Oh yes.
Like, honestly, exhausted. Other than being sick, I'm exhausted. Like, it's getting ridiculous. Because like a week and a half ago, Sarah Bond from Microsoft, literally the pinned video on the Xbox YouTube account is them talking about the partnership and them making next gen consoles, plural, for home and handheld, right? And people just a week later forget this was a thing, right? So that was all over the place. And I just thought that was really silly. And by the way, Mike Ybarra has came off like a angry ex-girlfriend ever since he was fired from Microsoft twice, right? He was fired from Microsoft or left Microsoft, and then he worked at Activision, and then he had to leave again. Ever since he left Activision, he's came off as a jealous ex-girlfriend. Bitter, and honestly, especially... excuse me. I'm choking for some reason. Ever since he left Microsoft in Activision, he's came off as a jealous ex-girlfriend, but we don't know why. And it's all public. We can see it. In the corporate world, I'm pretty sure you're not meant to act like this, right? Being very public, clearly saying what he's thinking out loud. And I just find it extremely weird. You don't normally see people in the corporate world act like this. We'll get into the whole studio thing in a minute, but I just thought this was the silliest thing because Microsoft in the past 6 months, if I remember correctly, have literally said about 8 times that more consoles are coming. Be it tweets, press releases, stuff at the Summer Showcase, stuff alongside the ROG Ally Xbox announcement, and what Sarah Bond came out with a week ago. For some reason, people are still questioning whether consoles are coming. And look, I made a post the other day talking about why would Microsoft announce a console that takes billions of dollars to R&D just to pull the ripcord, right? And people keep talking about how Microsoft promised only 4 games go multi-platform. I have to say it out loud. People are clearly dumb, right? Announcing only 4 games are going to be multi-platform versus announcing a console which costs billions to make, research and development. It's a completely different thing. And I've noticed over years, and I'm sure everyone in chat's noticed this, that I think gamers sometimes pretend to be intentionally dumb just so they can try and get one over you. It's not the same thing at all. And I think that, yes, I did use Bahamut on a regular enemy. Any chance to use a summon in a Final Fantasy game, doesn't matter what I'm fighting, I'm using a summon. Like hell, if I don't like spiders in real life. If I see a tiny spider and I could summon Bahamut in real life to take this, of course I would. Destroy the house, but be worth it, and it would look cool. Um, but yeah, Mike Ybarra, like that guy used to be like really cool at Xbox. You know, he introduced the whole, you know, Xbox BC features with the, take a screenshot, record a clip thing with the original Mass Effect game. And now he's just bitter all the time. Anytime, any chance he gets to crap on Microsoft, whether it's deserved or not, he just does it. Logan, what's your take? Because like it comes across as like really bitter.
Yeah, in the corporate world, there's generally a way to handle things and a way not to handle things. And it seems like the second one has been chosen here. And just really weird and petty. I mean, I get it. Pettiness can be fun or funny sometimes, but in certain context, it does not go well and it does not work anywhere. And I think this is one of those instances where it's better off to just like, hey, you're happy that your former employer is crashing and burning and the world is laughing at them. And maybe it's just better just to sit this one out and just watch it burn rather than jump in. Because it makes you look bad too, being a former captain in this ship that is, now sinking or on fire or whatever your analogy is right now. It's just, it's good. And it frankly is a bad reflection on people. And he's not the only former Xbox Studio associated person out there that's been doing stuff. Like the video from a former Xbox co-founder has been going around for a while talking about them exiting the hardware business, even though they have said at least 3 or 4 times now within the last year that they're definitively not exiting the hardware business. Sarah Bond just literally a week ago came out with another video talking about plural consoles and handhelds and all this backwards compatibility, all this stuff that should have assuaged all the concerns. And then it like in this TikTokification brain rot era that we're in, it feels like everybody has the attention span of a gnat. And it like they put out information and then a week later everybody forgets or some you know some bullcrap video or post about, oh, I heard or rumor has it or there's rumblings that, and then it starts it all up again. And it's really annoying, and it's particularly annoying from people that used to work at the company that should know better. And then like there's even, a former, I won't go into names for reasons, but like a former developer that used to work again that always pops up whenever something happens regarding Xbox or Obsidian. And it's just fascinating to see that them pop up all the time whenever something bad happens, even though there's a lot of controversy there in itself. So I don't know. It's just annoying, frankly, at the end of the day. Am I thrilled with what Xbox is doing? No, not at all. And we'll talk about it. But there's a way to handle it and a way not to handle it, and this ain't it.
Yeah. I'll use this analogy. I shouldn't use this analogy, but I will anyway. So, screw it. Why not? Um, so I once had this breakup, where it was extremely public. And you kind of trying to move on with things, and after a little while, I start seeing someone else. Everything's all cool, and we have the same similar friend group, so we still had to hang around each other. And every time we were in a public place after we broke up, she would constantly start arguments with me. Basically, I could just be minding my own business. Maybe I've went to the bar, and she'd come over, start screaming at me. because I'm not giving her any attention, right? This was after we broken up. And when I start seeing someone else, she would come over in the middle of a nightclub, not even kidding, and start an argument with me based on nothing, right? And it was over a breakup that wasn't caused by me. So I used to be standing there thinking, like, what the hell did I do? Like, like, none of this is my fault. And, time and time again, this would happen. And then one time, we're in this nightclub, and I'm talking to my then current girlfriend, and my ex comes storming over. I shouldn't be talking about this story, but why not? She comes storming over, right? So on this table, there's me, my new girlfriend, and I'm surrounded by a table of my friends. My ex comes over, like literally storming over in the middle of this nightclub. And bear in mind, she was constantly trying to get my attention all the time. Just before she starts speaking, the music in this nightclub stopped. And she said, "Jamie, if you want me, come get me." And it was the most overly dramatized yet hilarious thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. And it was public, and it was in front of everyone, right? And it was so awkward, right? That's what I get from this whole Mikey Barber thing, right? Crazy ex-girlfriend that just won't let it go. Because if I was fired from Microsoft twice, I'd be a bit salty. But at the same time, you're in the corporate world, and you shouldn't be doing that stuff. Just wanted to put it out there. I don't know why I used that analogy. I just thought it was funny. But yeah, we are getting next-gen Xbox consoles.
If it's...
Yeah. We are getting next-gen Xbox consoles. It's just the timing was... By the way, that timing was weird. 2 days before today's news, that happens out of nowhere. Felt a bit like it was coordinated because, you have IGN posting multiple articles about how, someone that used to work at Xbox is the exit in the hardware business. And then 2 days later, oh, by the way, studios are getting shut down. Right. Right, you know what? I might as well finish this story because, did I go get her? I actually walked outside of the nightclub. This is, by the way, for people tuning in, this is a gaming podcast. I just want to use a fun analogy. I did actually go outside, and I just got screamed at for about 10 minutes. That was the drama, while my friends were inside, pointing through the glass, laughing at me because I chose to go out there and put up with it. Crazy exes, what can I say? But yeah, today's news, bit crappy. So for people that don't know, I don't know how people would have missed it. Microsoft had over 9,000 layoffs at Microsoft. Around 200, I believe, were for Xbox. 50% of Forza Motorsport Studio Turn 10 has been axed. Everwild has been shut down and, cancelled. Perfect Dark has been cancelled. The initiative has been shut down. And multiple developers over from Raven Software, Xbox Socials, I believe, and other people at Xbox and Bethesda. Oh, yeah, and Bethesda's next MMO was cancelled, which we didn't know anything about. But bit of a rough day, not going to lie, for Xbox news, because this is a lot to go over. And like I said at the beginning of the show, people that had bets on for whether this was going to happen or not, those people make me sick. People that joke about this stuff, I don't know why people give these people clicks, People clickbaiting it, cringe face thumbnails. I don't care. I'm mentioning it. Like, it's very distasteful. Like, I think that what happened today is just as bad as what's happened with, Sony, with Embracer. And by the way, I got a lot of crap today on Twitter for mentioning this. Sony never gets their stuff posted when it comes to layoffs by Jeff Keighley at all, ever. So when I made a point about it, people are making it seem like I'm defending Microsoft. Like I've said time again, Microsoft today they messed up, right? And I'll get into all of it in a bit why I think this has happened, but it's a bad day for Xbox news, and we're constantly getting news stories about what's happened, and you know, look, Perfect Dark alone. Actually, no, let's get Everwild out the way. Here's my take on Everwild. Everwild was announced, I want to say, in 2018, maybe 2017, with a CGI trailer of some fish, some animals, and all this stuff, but we didn't know what it was. A couple of years go by, and we get a new trailer of more fish, animals, and we still don't know. We didn't even know what genre the game was. We just knew that Rare was making a new IP. And, every time I posted about the game, people would reply saying, it's vaporware, it's going to get cancelled. And when the game got cancelled, I'm not even surprised. Nobody knew what it was. We hadn't had an update on it for years. So, like, what was Rare doing behind the scenes? We don't know. Sea of Thieves is consistently getting content because that game, it's a popular game. But this new IP, like, it basically was vaporware. They were sinking money into it. Nothing was happening. It's like, how many years does this game need to take to get made? Considering we haven't had an update in, 3 years? So, like, it being cancelled doesn't really surprise me. Like, Logan, what was your take on the whole Everwild thing? Because I think that one game didn't really surprise people.
Everwild was the least surprising by far. It it was originally announced at the first EXO that they brought back when they brought back the event. In a brief little CGI trailer where you see a bunch of, woodland folk running around in the woods and they run into some magical deer looking thing. And there was some shiny music and people are like, okay, this looks kind of cool, but I still have no idea what on earth this is, but I like the vibes. And then kept going years after years after years. Like you'd hear a little rumbling here or there, but nothing concrete. And then, oh, it's been rebooted once or twice, or oh, there's been a change of focus, or they're having trouble making it an actual game rather than an idea, or whatever. And then finally, it comes out today. It's canned. Like it is the least surprising of the announcements by far. Like I'm totally not shocked by it. It's of course disappointing. Nobody wants a game that people have been working on for years to get, thrown out and people to, have their jobs affected by it. But that one I in a cold, hard, blunt business sense, I get it. It makes sense. And if I were to be in charge and had to cut some games or cancel some games and projects, that would definitely have been towards the top of the list based on the criteria I said. Like, nobody knew what in the world it really was. They were having trouble with creative vision, getting it going, making a gameplay loop, all this stuff. It had been in development for since pre-pandemic, which is a long time ago, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It was time to cut bait and move on to this different project. And it sucks, but that one is justifiable, and I get it. Other ones, some big old issues with, but that one, no.
Yeah. So like Everwild doesn't surprise me. The Bethesda MMO thing, we don't really know anything about it. We don't know if it was Fallout. We don't know if it was a new Elder Scrolls or Starfield MMO.
Blackbird is all.
Yeah. So like other than that, we don't really know anything. So I can't really say anything on that. I will say that Fallout 76 had this like massive resurgence last year. So like I can see them putting basically all their eggs in that basket. Elder Scrolls Online is popular. It's consistently popular. So that I think they just want to keep all that money into those two games, which I think's fine. Um, Perfect Dark is the big one. Like, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it because why should I? Perfect Dark is an IP I absolutely love. Unfortunately it's an IP we barely get games in because the last one came out. What was it? A 360 launch title? It was a launch title, right?
Yep. Perfect Dark Zero.
Yeah. So it's been a while, and then the last one we had before that was Nintendo 64. So Microsoft bringing back that IP. I love the idea of it. A new studio, the Initiative, which was founded in 2018. Remember when that studio was founded, there was a lot of hype. They had a lot of big names working at the studio. Then they announced that Crystal Dynamics was also helping them with the game. And then when we got that trailer last year, honestly, and I posted about this on Twitter, I'm getting a lot of shit about it still. I'm trying not to swear, I apologize, but I'm getting a lot of crap about it just because I said what they had that last year looked special, right? A first-person immersive sim, first-person shooter. I had to say first-person twice there for some reason. With parkour, a spy game, and it looked great, right? And it just came out just before the show went live today that it turns out all that gameplay we saw wasn't real. Turns out it was pre-rendered. So the Initiative spent 6 years making this game, and we couldn't even get real gameplay last year. And granted, look, I've followed video games my entire life. We've all seen CGI that is made to look like video game gameplay, right? We've all been watching, big budget movies or TV shows where there's a fake video game on the TV. We can tell from a mile away it's not a real video game because the way the camera moves, everything about it looks fake, But this game, like that I was going to say Killzone 2, but that Perfect Dark footage we got last year looked like actual gameplay, like legit gameplay, but it turns out it was pre-rendered. I'm shocked that the only thing I can think that would give that away is at the end of the trailer where the character's doing this kind of quick close quarters combat with firing the gun. But other than that, it looks like gameplay. So I'm guessing we'll find more about that soon. But if they were making a game for 7 years, just for prosperity's sake, let's just say 5 because there must have been R&D in different games. Let's say 5 years. If you were making a game for 5 years and you still don't have footage to show off, even if it's a vertical slice, I can honestly say that's why you would have cancelled it. Because that's over 100 people making a game for X amount of years. That's a lot of money being sunk into that, and you still don't have a game to show. There's a problem this generation where games are taking way too long to develop. They cost way too much. And, Matt Booty said this before, but he has a point. We've seen this across the board. Video games now take 5, 6, 7 years to make. Whereas in the 7th generation, they took 2.5 years, 3 years max. I know we have this.
We got trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah, we got trilogies in the same generation. 3 Mass Effect games, 3 Bioshock games, 3 Batman Arkham games, right? 3 Dead Space games, 4 Gears of War games, 5 Halo games, right? And now, we're lucky if we get 2 games in the same franchise in the same generation. Microsoft, they've gutted a lot of their studios, or a few of their studios. People are making it seem like the end of the world. Like, no, what happened today is bloody disappointing. Right? It's always going to be disappointing. But people are acting like it's the end of Microsoft. It's forced, but I understand why people are upset. But to find out that gameplay was fake, that was the tipping point for me before this show went live. Because you have this amazing studio of developers, impressive studios there, and a lot of talent making these games, and you can't get out real gameplay. That's messed up. That's really messed up. Why? So no wonder they waxed. I hate to say it, but no wonder they waxed. Now that gameplay, I'm doing air quotes. That gameplay we saw last year, like I'm sick of the endless barrage of the same game over and over again. This is an industry problem, and I'm sick and tired of it. Right? Me and Logan both complain about this. We seem to get the same game over and over again by all these companies. A lot of people don't want to point it out, but I saw that Perfect Dark gameplay last year, and I loved it. It was part Mirror's Edge, part Deus Ex, and we couldn't get real gameplay. Man, like that is so disappointing. Um, you know, I will elaborate on this. The whole before we get into the whole why this is happening thing, Logan, what was your immediate take on the whole Perfect Dark thing?
Well, I've kind of had a bevy of different emotions about it. My first thought was I was extremely pissed off. That was my first thought. Because I'm like, are you kidding me? You take one of your most revered, respected IPs that has been in deep freeze for a long time. You're finally bringing it back. You get two whole big AAA studios co developing it. And you finally sound like things are going in a good direction. And then you show this awesome, what we thought was gameplay trailer just last year, and it looked fantastic. Everybody's excited. And then you completely just nuke it the next year and one of the studios working on it. Which, frankly, side tangent, I wonder how this affects Crystal Dynamics because it kind of sounded like Xbox is helping keep the lights on over there. So, with this game being canceled, I wonder what their future is and what the Tomb Raider game's future is.
Yeah,
If Amazon or Embracer are going to be as gung ho about that adventure going forward. Okay, back to Perfect Dark. Yeah, it just, I don't know. I was just criminally disappointed because I loved Perfect Dark. Yeah, as someone who grew up with the N64, I revere that era of Rare and their games, and Perfect Dark was a masterclass. So I really wanted a modern take on it, and I was so excited when they announced it and the latest stuff they showed. So I was very, very angry and disappointed when I first heard it was canceled. But then you start seeing and hearing stuff that this was essentially like a vaporware type, not quite abandoned, but like pony show where they put it out there and it's not actually representative of what's been going on for 5 years. And then you're like, well, this is like Everwild then. No wonder they got butt canceled. This, you spend 5 years and you can't get something more than a fake trailer out? No wonder your game is canceled and your studio shuttered. That's cold, that's harsh, but that's reality. Like, you have to produce in this industry, and if you can't, then things happen. I don't want cancellations. I don't want studio closures, but at the end of the day, if you don't produce, there are consequences. And this is the consequences for this. I don't like it, but it's reality. And I so wish it wasn't that way. I so wish this game was real and was gonna happen. But today, it's what happens. Anything, I think this poorly reflects on Booty's leadership of the Xbox studios. Like, how are you in charge of these studios and you keep getting these big O AAA budget titles can't get anything more than a fake trailer out in 5 years? What is going on? Are you like so hands off that you're just in your office and then the apartment's on fire and then you walk in and then you're like, oh, maybe I should have checked in from time to time? You think? Like, you don't have to be iron leash on these people. Sometimes a firmer hand is needed, and I think they were too hands off with some personal opinion. I don't know what you think, but I think they were so scared. of being, oh, Microsoft is over managing again, that they went too far the other direction and the house was on fire, and then they finally came back and the house was cooked by the time they came back.
Yeah. You know, I've seen this multiple times today, so I'll address it. Like, what if the Fable gameplay was fake? The Perfect Dark thing was never announced to be like gameplay running on an Xbox, right? Fable was. Like, that was legit gameplay. During one of the Xbox
Mm-hmm.
podcasts, like, I think it was 3 months ago, like, that had gameplay in it. Like, they said that was running on an Xbox Series X. So, like, look, people are going to be cautious now about every game now. Um, but like,
I don't blame them.
yeah, I don't blame them. And like the fake trailer thing, like, you have two instances of the fake trailer, right? You have what's it called, High on Life, right? High on Life 2, which was announced at the Xbox showcase 2 weeks ago. We all saw that CGI trailer. Nobody thought that was real gameplay. It was blatantly obvious that that was CGI, and they said it was CGI, right? There's that kind, and then there's uh letting deliberately making people think that it's real. You know, the oldest one I can think of. It's like, if you remember back in 2006, when Killzone 2 was shown off. The
Well, that
stu
was infamous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like that was. I think that was the one that started it all. But like the studio that makes Killzone, uh, what is it? Sony Santa Monica that make Killzone? I think it is.
It was Gorilla.
Gorilla, thank you.
Gor-
Um,
yeah, they made Horizon Zero Dawn.
yeah. So like when that trailer was shown off, apparently people from Gorilla had no idea what they were looking at. So thankfully, the game that they came out with Killzone 2, they tried to make it look as close as possible to what we saw in that trailer. But like the fake trailer thing, it's happened before. And unfortunately, it's probably going to happen again. But like the fake trailer thing, I think is very rare now. But it's so unfortunate. Like, look, I love Perfect Dark. I love what I saw. My hope is that somehow Microsoft can go, you know what, we'll try and make this a real game. Like, it's probably not going to happen. But yeah, like all that development into like 2 games, like who knows how many millions of dollars that is for Everwild and Perfect Dark. But like we've been talking about for a while, the price of these games are costing way too much. Like, I love that we get these super realistic games that look great, but I don't know. Like, I have this like weird reminiscent thing with the seventh generation where I just look at my shelf and think, like, look at all the sequels we had. Games didn't cost $400 million, $300 million. Like, hell, if I remember correctly, I think Mass Effect. Of course, I have to use that Mass Effect for everything, but if I remember correctly, Mass Effect 3 cost $40 million, right? That was a game that had a huge marketing campaign. They bloody sent a copy of Mass Effect 3 into space for a competition. Um, and, that game had an unbelievable amount of dialogue. It's actually, most people don't actually realize this. Mass Effect 3 is actually the longest of the trilogy, right? And it has no open world sections. But we had so many sequels back then. Games didn't take 4, 5, 6 years to make. Like, do you know how many Rockstar games we had on the 360? 8. We had 8 games by Rockstar on the 360. Do you know how many we're going to have this generation? 1. Just 1. We might just have one new Rockstar game for the next 15 years. How bloody scary is that? Right? These games shouldn't cost that much. And like, look, when we saw that The Witcher 4 tech demo, myself and alongside everyone else thought, bloody hell, that looks amazing. I can't wait to play The Witcher 4. I hope it actually does look like this when it comes out. But that game is rumored to cost $400 million. These games are costing way too much. I think us as gamers, we are expecting way too much, right? We want ultra photorealistic graphics. We want realistic looking characters in these worlds that look like we can reach out and touch. You have mainstream actors that are getting more into video games, so that inflates the budget even more. You have companies that are like charging way too much for licenses. Then you have the music and all this stuff. Like, I've been talking about for this video game Crash 2.0 for like, what, a year and a half now, going on 2 years. I still think that's going to happen, right? The budgets are the main problem. I 100% believe if this goes back to the 7th gen and games didn't cost $100 million, Microsoft wouldn't have had to lay off any studios. We wouldn't have seen this across the board. These games cost way too much. And like, look at every time you see these AA games pop off, right? The developers always talk about how the game didn't cost $100 million to make. AA games actually launch in a working fashion, and they're never like super big games, right? Another example is Expedition 33. That game didn't cost $400 million, and it's probably going to win Game of the Year across the board later this year. Another good example is Alan Wake 2. I think Alan Wake 2 cost $40 million. $40 million.
Masterclass.
Yeah, it's a lot of bloody money, but for a video game of that quality, like, we need to see budgets managed better. We need to see like game budgets go down. And whenever AI gets brought up, people want to blame AI for everything. Something needs to happen on the development side to get the cost of these games down. Because when I talk about the video game crash, I always get a few similar replies about how we still have indie games and double A games. I don't think those games are going away. I think, thankfully, indie, AA, they actually know how to manage budgets because they actually have to manage budgets. I think these games costing hundreds of millions of dollars, it's going to break the industry, because then you have these games that they have to launch day one and be an instant success. So for The Witcher 4, for instance, right? I've probably messed up my math, but bear with me. For The Witcher 4 to be a success out of the gate, it has to sell like 12 million copies in its first month. Like, am I the only person that realizes that that's bloody insane? Right? That's crazy. Now, is The Witcher 4 going to be huge? More than likely. But, like, you have to have a guaranteed success to make these games profitable. And I've seen people blame Game Pass. I don't think Game Pass is to blame for anything, because if you take the amount of money Game Pass makes and divide it by the amount of games in development, that's the cost of all those games being made, right? Like, I know Game Pass people like to use as a scapegoat, but Game Pass makes billions. That's fine. I think it's 100% about the budgets. Like, how can you make a game for 8 years and have nothing to show? That's a problem, right? It reminds us of back when Mass Effect Andromeda was in development. Like, that game we got was essentially made in 18 months. Like, they had so many different versions of different games that were basically, started, and stopped, like several different times. So, like, what were these developers doing for 5 years? Like, really, what were they doing? Like, these offices cost a lot of money to run. You have all the developers, like, wages, and, if you have the US and all that stuff, you have insurance. Like, I think that these publishers, maybe behind the scenes, are all going to have to meet up and think, how can we get the budgets of these games down? Because we've seen it time and time again. And then it doesn't help that during the pandemic, more people were staying in the house, so they were spending more on video games. And remember, everyone in the industry, they were hiring like mad. Embracer, people want to talk about monopolies and buying studios. Embracer has literally bought more studios than Sony, Microsoft, EA combined. Right? Nobody bats an eye. But they staffed up hard, and what happened? They've closed more studios than Microsoft and Sony combined, more layoffs than them two combined, and nobody bats an eye. Like, I know people want to make 1,000 videos and clickbait about how like Microsoft's like the worst thing in the world, and don't get me wrong, they've messed up today. But people really need to talk about the bigger issue. It's game budgets, right? We aren't all stuck in the house. This isn't like the pandemic, staffing up like they did. was inevitably going to hurt everyone. I think these games costing way too much, it's going to backfire. You know, you have to, like, let's say, I'll use Sony as an example because, they have less games in the works, but bear with me. Like, they come out with a brand new single player action adventure later this year with Ghost of Yotai, right? That is a single player game. It's probably going to sell well, right? But like, how much money do they really need to operate their studios? They don't have a lot of different games coming out. Most of their games don't even have microtransactions, so they're not making money on a monthly basis. So like, their games have to come out and be a success, right? I think the game industry right now, having to be in a state where your game has to be a success the week it comes out, it's setting everyone up for failure. It's crazy. Logan, have you got anything else to say on the whole game budget thing? Because it's ballooned to the point where, like, Grand Theft Auto might be costing $2 billion, including its marketing cycle, but these games cost way too much. And I talk about the game crash all the time, but it feels like it's heading that way.
Honestly, I think a game crash might be a good thing at this point. Um, the AAA industry, like there needs to be a big reset because clearly whatever's going is unsustainable, and in an industry where trillion-dollar companies are making hand over fist so much money, uh, profits out the and best quarters ever, and they're still laying off 6,000, 9,000 people is just craziness. And like honestly, you've said it before and I agree. I would be fine with 360 level visuals if we just kept that and had innovative gameplay and design and characteristics and stuff. Like obviously, if we could have photorealistic graphics, that's great. But you know, something has to give. Like trying to get every single thing into one game and out the door is just making things astronomically expensive and difficult to accomplish within a reasonable amount of time. Like, at the end of the day, I just want fun games. I don't care if it's Vampire Survivors or Alters, Expedition 33, Halo Infinite 2, whatever it is. At the end of the day, I just want fun, cool games with great characters and stories, gameplay, etc. If it looks artistic or it looks photorealistic, cool. Whatever the case, just make fun games. Like, it does not have to be this difficult. They're trying to get have their cake and eat it too all at once. And it's just not going to work. And apparently there's been further updates on the layoffs and apparently Halo Studios actually was affected. Um that some managerial layoffs, not as big as other studios, but they were affected, so I was correcting from earlier. And there's some rumors about OD, but there's been conflicting things about that, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, the OD thing, there's nothing we can really say because we don't know what it is. Like we know it's a horror game,
Yeah.
and like as far as I know, Microsoft wasn't funding that. If I'm correct, like Microsoft was just going to publish it. Um, but yeah, it's crap that all of this is happening. It really is. Um, I think these studios and like Phil Spencer and the heads of all these publishers, they really need to look at games like Expedition 33, even things like RoboCop Rogue City. Like, how can we get these game budgets down? Like, some people might think it's a cop out just blaming the budgets of these games, but like them staffing up the way they did during the pandemic, which has hurt a lot of people in the end. Like, and games coming out like how can you have people working in an office, 100 plus people working in an office, making a game for 6, 7, 8 years, and have nothing to show for it. That's the cost of like running that building, electricity, lights, all that stuff, right? Wages for the staff, cleaners, everything, insurance, land tax, everything, right? And they have nothing to show. We say it a lot about other cancelled games as well, not just Microsoft, but like that I mentioned earlier in the show, Respawn cancelling that. I should say EA cancelling the Mandalorian game, right? How much money did they pay for that Star Wars license, because they have to pay for the license, and the product was never released, right? So arguably hundreds of millions of dollars. It's getting wild, like, and I don't, I know Logan said, and I know a lot of people might agree with this, like, a game crash needs to happen to reset it. I don't want there to be a game crash, but it kind of needs to happen at this point. I honestly, look, I love the advancement of technology. I love that some of these games look bloody incredible. But when I've been playing, I use Final Fantasy 16 as an example. When I've been playing this game, it's a good looking game. Don't get me wrong, but I'm enjoying it because of the gameplay, right? I think the hyper fixation on visuals is setting everything back, right? Like, if The Witcher 4 came out tomorrow and it has cool new gameplay mechanics, but it looks like The Witcher 3, I honestly wouldn't complain. I think that game looked good when it came out. I think it still looks good. I don't necessarily think, like, look, if Mass Effect 4 came out tomorrow and it looked like Mass Effect 3, I honestly would not care. Wouldn't care. You'll have a lot of people online saying it looks like a 360 game, but where else can
Not
we
a diss.
Yeah, like where can people go from here? And honestly, I think that especially late generation 7th gen games still look great, right? Mass Effect 3 looks amazing still. Halo 4 looks incredible still. Uncharted 3 looks incredible. Red Dead Redemption, which launched in 2010, looks great. But now it's just that the industry's a mess. And you're gonna have these people, and I've already seen these people doing the clickbait in my feed, like, oh, the end of Xbox. It's like, no, it's the end of AAA gaming being fun, right? Like, talking about gaming every week used to be fun, and it still is. Like, this is when I realized something's going on, right? So the Xbox showcase 2 weeks ago, alongside Summer Games Fest, Future Game Show, all that stuff, right? After me whining and complaining constantly for years now how we're getting the same thing over and over and over again, I walked away from that weekend thinking, wow, we're getting some really cool sequels and some interesting new games. And then what do we find out 2 weeks later? Half the bloody industry shutting down. It's like something needs to be reset with this industry. It's happening too often, time and time again. And, look, Microsoft's done it. Sony's done it. Embrace is the big one, by the way. Like, more people need to point the finger at Embrace and saying, why does this keep happening? Hell, they made so much money off their...
They're the Death Star of the industry.
Yeah. Like, hell, they hired up so much during the pandemic. They basically thought they had endless money because of the Saudi Arabia deal they had at the time. They bought the Lord of the Rings IP. Why? Why does Embracer need to own Lord of the Rings? Why? Doesn't make any sense. But they do, because they had the money at the time, right? A lot of studios had this idea of, basically endless funding, because everyone was stuck in the house. Everyone was buying more games than usual. They were leaving the house less. But, yeah, it's crazy. It really is. I think, hopefully at some point in the near future we hear publishers talk about this. The budget's clearly the issue. Otherwise, no one would have been fired. And when you do buy a different company, such as a publisher, like, obviously you're not going to have a few people with the same role. So some layoffs do actually make sense. It's unfortunate, but that's how corporations are structured. But when you have layoffs in the thousands, like, it's ridiculous. Like I think Facebook, not long ago had like 10,000 people laid off or something. Right? It's happening all over the place. Um, it's crappy. Now, what's my thought on Xbox going forward? I really think they need to just concentrate on their main IP right now, right? And some smaller games. So your Halo, Forza, Gears, Fable, and the problem, but I'll talk about Forza Motorsport quickly. Forza Motorsport, which released in what 2023, that is arguably the worst received Forza game, and I don't really know why. You know, I think, when it comes to visuals, it didn't look that much better outside of ray tracing than Forza Motorsport 7. And Forza Motorsport 7 is no slouch. If you play the Dubai level, the Dubai racing track, it looks mind blowing still. And that was an Xbox Series X, Xbox One X launch title. All around then, anyway. I think, they need to get their handle on things because they're smaller games like Keeper, which comes out later this year, having remasters by secondary studios such as Gears of War Reloaded. That's clearly going to do well. Oblivion, they had huge success with that. They came out with Doom. Like, I think them going back to maybe older IP is going to be put on hold for a while because Perfect Dark is a 30-year-old IP or something, and we haven't had a Perfect Dark game for 20 years. So isn't that technically a huge bloody risk in in an environment which is risk averse? The AAA space is risk averse to hell. That's why we see so little fresh ideas all the time. I think that's why Expedition 33 was, other than it being great, but like it felt fresh for so many people because we've had the same thing over and over and over again. It's crazy, So like, will we see a jet set? What do you call it? Logan, what was the name of that sci-fi rare game from back in the day? Something Gemini.
Oh, a Jet Force
Jet
Gemini.
Force Gemini.
Yeah.
Right. So like, as much as I would think it would be cool to like have a remake or a reboot of the Jet Force Gemini IP, right? I would love to see that, brand new sci-fi action adventure game. But realistically, how the hell do you market that, and who are you marketing it to, right? I think the days of these companies doing a Perfect Dark, making new games based on old IP, I think it's done. These games cost way too much, and who's buying them? Like Perfect Dark, for everyone listening right now, you know what Perfect Dark is. But the majority of gamers, no bloody idea. Banjo Kazooie, I would love Banjo and Kazooie to come back. Will it ever come back? I don't think so. Nuts and Bolts came out in 2008? Wasn't exactly the best received game, even though I think it's a fun game. Still looks good, by the way. Still a fun game, but I think the days of bringing back old IP is done. I think the only things you have a chance of, seeing that happen is like, a StarCraft shooter, because that game has legacy there. It's a franchise that has built in millions of fans, right? A World of Warcraft spin-off, stuff like that. But I think, Microsoft making a reboot to an IP they bought, 5 years ago of a 30-year-old IP, like Freelancer or something, I just don't see it happening ever again. And it's a shame because, that fake Perfect Dark gameplay we saw, that's exactly what I've been wanting for video games. I've been wanting a bloody, cyberpunk immersive sim. A spy game. And by the way, every time I talk about Splinter Cell, which is apparently a lot, I always get the reply, but Perfect Dark is coming. Well, guess what? No, not anymore. No spy games for me. I have to wait. My bones are going to be dust the next time a AAA spy game happens. Unfortunately, because Ubisoft, they aren't showing stuff. Logan, have you
And
got?
we still have that K-pop one coming.
Yeah. What's it called? Mudang Two Hearts, where it looks like you play as a K-pop star turned secret agent. That sounds incredible, by the way.
That's our only hope at this point.
Yeah.
That and the Spine game, the Kung Kung
Yeah,
fu cyberpunk thriller. Yeah.
yeah, but outside of that, like spy games are done. Like I know always people always say Microsoft, oh sorry, Sony should bring back Siphon Filter. I don't think that'll happen. Like who outside of people here and your fans have heard of Siphon Filter, right? Old
It's a
IP,
name I haven't heard in years.
yeah, like old IP coming back, not happening. And I think you look at Nintendo, right? What does Nintendo really make, right? They make Mario, they make Zelda, Donkey Kong, and they have unbelievable success every time. And maybe I think that if you look at the industry, right, you look at them, they have an unbelievable success. Their games clearly don't take hundreds of millions of dollars to make, yet they sell more copies of games than Microsoft, Sony, EA, and Ubisoft combined. Why is that? Do people not care about graphics anymore? Do people care about the IP more? Because I've never really heard anyone complain about the graphics in a Zelda game. They know they get a good game, so why complain about it? Maybe Microsoft and Sony need to be more like Nintendo. But I mean, it's just hard to tell that this industry's screwed. you know. Now I did want to talk about Fallout briefly because the Fallout TV show is happening this year, and I have been asked like, do I think the Fallout remake's cancelled? Not a snowball's chance in hell. um, that game is guaranteed to print money. Right, when you have Fallout 4, trending number one in Europe, selling number one in Europe. Yeah, Fallout 3 remake. That's gonna print money. That really is gonna print money. So I think that's safe, and if I remember correctly, that's also Virtuos. That isn't a $200 million game. It really isn't. Oh yeah, Tony Hawk. I could see Tony Hawk coming back. Because that built-in fan base is there, and we used to get Tony Hawk games all the time, and I think that nostalgia's still there. I think skateboarding games have a chance of coming back regularly. You have Skate 4, which is in development, a few indie titles in the skateboarding scene, and also I think Guitar Hero.
Pyro is
Yeah,
coming back.
yeah, Spyro. I think that has a chance of coming back. Although I'm sure someone else chat have to say, didn't the last Spyro game launch on the PlayStation 2?
Um, if you don't include the remasters, it
Yeah.
was OG Xbox and PS2. Well,
Wow.
actually, no, take it back. There was a 360. It was like Year of the Dragon or like in Legacy or something. There was a 360 Spyro game.
Wow. So it's been a while. um, but yeah, Spyro that can come back. If people haven't played the Reignited trilogy, it still looks great. Right, Crash Bandicoot. I mean, that's proven to have success in the modern day. Guitar Hero, for the love of God, bring back Guitar Hero. But outside of them, I can't see many, coming back. Which is a shame. But yeah, Fallout. I think Fallout will still happen. Will it launch alongside the TV show? That's hard to say. I was 100% certain that Fallout was going to launch alongside the TV show in March next year, but the TV show is coming out in December. So would Microsoft realistically launch a Fallout 3 remake in December? If it's ready, that is. That's hard to tell. Logan, do you think the Fallout 3 remake makes it this year?
I don't know. I mean, if it were me, I'd want it 100% to be out with the show. So if the show, is for December, then I would say if the game is ready, you get and you put it out in December. If not, then just release it as soon as it's ready because you want to capitalize on that. And I definitely agree that the Fallout 3 remake is safe.
Yeah. Man, I know it's been a bit of a down episode for people, but it's such a crazy time. Like, we talked about how Microsoft steps on rakes, but like the case of the industry in general. It's like we get good news and then bad news, and it's an endless cycle. you know, um, almost every single podcast every week is pretty much positive because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. But this past week, it's crazy because 2 weeks ago, Microsoft has the showcase. Then we get told there's a next gen Xbox on the way, which is still happening. And then there's this stuff today. It's wild. It really is. Like, when I start to see people put bets on for whether the layoffs were happening or not, I wish people were being sarcastic, but no, I actually did see it. Oh yeah, and it also came out earlier today that Phil Spencer's retiring during the next generation after its launch, but Jez Corden came out. It's been, proved to be false. Honestly, I think Phil Spencer's did a great job with Xbox since 2014 when he took over. I think, and I've seen this today, and I actually agree. I think it's Satya Nadella's fault. A lot of this, like the game budgets, is the studio's thing, but I think a lot of problems you see from Xbox are Satya Nadella's fault. Right? Gaming used to be such a small part of Microsoft, where like it would kind of be a footnote. They'd have someone in from meetings just stand there and basically oversee Xbox talk. But Microsoft makes so much money from gaming now. Gaming for Xbox Game Pass, the sales in the store, literally billions across the board. I think it's Satya Nadella thinking, where can we get more money? How many people can we lay off? And Microsoft, they are heavily invested into AI, right? Microsoft has spent billions on AI because in the corporate world at the minute, there's this back and forth with who can have the best AI. And I think AI as a tool is fantastic, but there's this trying not to get demonetized here. There's this over enthusiasm with trying to get AI to the point where we can have it replace everything. The truth is, as good as AI gets, it's never going to be a replacement for a person. It really isn't. But you have these super higher ups that just think that it's going to fix everything. I think as a tool, it's fine. Oh yeah, was Activision a mistake? In retrospect, yeah, it was. Like when the Activision deal was first announced, back in 2022? I think it was 2022. There's all this excitement about like what's going to happen with Call of Duty. I never thought Call of Duty was going to be exclusive. Like it's too big of a brand. It's like Minecraft, right? To be exclusive. But like I always used to think, it's about the back catalog. You have King, also World of Warcraft prints money. You have Overwatch, which prints money. But like ever since they purchased Activision, it just feels like they're trying to find more areas to make money, and that's always the goal of a business, is to make more money than you spend, right? For profit for profit companies. Can't speak today. You aren't exactly going to have a company like Microsoft say, you know what, we've spent $80 billion on Activision. Let's just give our games away. Let's sell this to less people, because like with the a Gears of War or something, studios they already own, they can have those games exclusive because they can afford to. But like Activision being purchased is really when everything changed, because people make it seem like Microsoft has been doing this multi-platform thing for years. Like I know it started back in January 2024. Before then, what was really multi-platform? Outside of Minecraft, Call of Duty.
Minecraft.
Yeah. Like outside of those few titles, not really anything. Like ever since Activision was purchased, that's when everything changed. That's when pricing models got weird all over the place. Like it really hasn't benefited anyone. Now, is it cool to have Activision games in Game Pass? Yeah. I think it's cool that new Game Pass games come out all the time, and we get a new Activision game once a month. Hopefully, we see the back catalog come. But like looking back, Microsoft should have just really have formed a because you see, Activision wanted to be sold off, right? So there was always going to be someone that would purchase Activision. I think, if anything, Microsoft should have just formed a close partnership, right? You didn't need to buy them. You could have still, invested in Activision, still get those games day one in Game Pass, be the number one marketer for the game, but like none of these things really happened until Activision were purchased. Bit of a shame. Um, Logan, have you got anything else to say on this topic? Because it did really start with the Activision stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. Like on one hand, I think it was a mistake because you spent years fighting across the globe to get this stupid thing done, and then you spent unholy amounts of money and legal resources to get it done. And you finally get it done, but at what cost? Now you have intensified scrutiny from the financial department and the head of the entire company and the board and the investors and the stockholders and all this stuff that you didn't have before. And to where it's like, hey, you borrow $80 billion or come back with that money and interest. And it's just a shame. And all these jobs lost and like on one hand, a lot of Xbox fans feel like morons for having, campaigned and supported this and wanted this to happen and this because we had pie in the sky ideals about what could happen with it. And for the most part, it has been a real dud so far. Like, there have been some good things that have. There have been. But there's also a heck of a lot to be desired going forward that they need to make good on. And I think they can. I hope they will. But yes, there has been good from it. Like getting the stuff in Game Pass, resurrecting some IP potentially, like, maybe backwards compatibility stuff, like cloud stuff, innovation in certain areas, like the talent and being able to use all this stuff is really, but we got to see some results because right now it's been, I'd say, a C at best. It's not been great, and that's being generous, frankly. So all in all, it's just, it is what it is. We have to go forward, but I am definitely not one of these campaign for acquisitions again type guys right now until the industry has a major change. Because this just blew up in their face.
Yeah. Do you know what this actually reminds me of? It reminds me of how the Netflix and WWE deal went through, right? So, like in January 2024, it was announced that you know, Netflix. We don't know. I don't think we know how much. I think it cost about over 500 million. But Netflix basically bought exclusive rights for 5 years for WWE, outside of SmackDown. So, like in the UK, you get all the pay-per-views. You get SmackDown, Raw, NXT, and before it all happened in January this year, when the whole Netflix deal started, uh, Triple H was asked like what's the benefit of this deal, and Triple H literally said like, look, we have in between like 5 to 12 million people that watch our shows every week. We have the chance to reach 100+ million people being on Netflix. Because if you open Netflix when War's on or SmackDown or pay-per-views on, that is the top thing you see on Netflix, right? Hundreds of millions of people are subscribed to Netflix, right? And so, like, you have people like me who hadn't watched in 20 years, who thought, you know what, it's on Netflix, I'm going to start watching again. So I started watching again, right? So you have Netflix start showing all this wrestling stuff, and some episodes of Raw have 5 million viewers, 2 million viewers, right? And bear in mind, hundreds of millions of people have Netflix. And by the way, I think one of the reasons why the views are so low is because of the European market. Everyone's asleep when Raw's on, unless you have insomnia like me and you're up late. But like, that you don't have as many people watching live as that they hoped. Then you have TKO, which is the parent company, which spent I think $3 billion on the WWE, and they are wanting a return on investment. So do you know what happens now? You don't get these big custom sets during most pay-per-views, right? That's why, by the way, I thought I was having a brain fart when I started watching the wrestling again this year. There's no unique sets outside of WrestleMania, right? So, like, they're saving money on sets, right? They are charging more for seats, right? Imagine my shock when I found out a WrestleMania ticket, which I was looking at, cost £21,000. £21,000. That's a car. You can get a car for that price, and this is a bloody ticket to sit down in a seat and watch some wrestling. Right, so like the dynamic between what's happening with TKO, TKO, Netflix, and WWE really reminds me of Microsoft, Activision, and Xbox. Right, similar things are going on. So like, merchandise costs more for the wrestling now. Like everything costs more because they want to get their return on investment. And then you have this Activision deal which cost $80 billion, and they clearly want that money back. Yeah. By the way, I wasn't joking. The wrestling seats, £21,000. That's close to $40,000. By the way,
That's outrageous.
yeah, like that's close to $40,000.
That's like that's more than like courtside tickets to Game 7. That's insane.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. But these companies, they want that money back as soon as possible, and we'll see what happens. But it's been a long show today. I don't like talking about all this crap, but I mean, it is Xbox, and an Xbox podcast, and had to cover it. But hopefully, we need some good news for Microsoft, because this is the problem, right? Before we end the show, people keep using the analogy Microsoft stepping on rakes, because we have this meme that is Xbox is dead, Xbox is back. Xbox is dead, Xbox is back. What happened in the past several weeks, right? Xbox announces Gears of War for PlayStation with the Reloaded. It's the end of Xbox. Microsoft's leaving the console space. Then we get the Xbox Showcase, right? we get the Xbox Showcase, and it's a fantastic showcase. Xbox is back. Then a couple of days pass, and people start talking about multi-platform stuff. It's the end of Xbox again. And then Sarah Bond has that video out on the Xbox YouTube channel talking about how they're working with AMD on new Xbox consoles. Xbox is back, baby. Right? Then 2 days pass, or a week pass, sorry, and Mikey Barr is talking about how Microsoft needs to stay in their lane and get out the hardware business. Xbox is dead once again. Stein from Twitter talks about how Xbox is making consoles. Xbox is back, baby. And then literally 24 hours later, studios shut down, games cancelled. Xbox is dead again. So hopefully by the next show, which we will be returning on Tuesday next week, Xbox will be back again, because oh my god, what a week. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
It is, if anybody from Xbox is listening, this next week would sure be a great time to have some good and positive news, or consumer goodwill gestures, because the vibes ain't it right now, fam. They're not.
Yeah. Oh crap! I don't know what's going on. My page just crashed. Okay, for some reason my streaming dashboard completely crashed. If people can hear me, Sorry for that. The streaming software, it sometimes messes up. Nothing I can really do about it. But yeah, what can I say? Microsoft, like you said, they need some goodwill. They need some goodwill soon. What form should that be in? I honestly don't know. You know, if they are holding on to the backwards compatible batch, which we keep hearing about, maybe announce that. They really need like they had the showcase absolutely nailed. They saved the showcase season, and now, like, look at the situation. Like, and I know for a fact some people from Microsoft have listened to this show. Just some goodwill. Do something nice. Show something off. Maybe, I don't know. If you plan on shadow dropping something, show it now. Right? I don't care. If maybe show off the Fallout 3 remake. Anything. Just we need some positive vibes. Maybe some. It's a term I like to use. Positive reinforcement. Gamers need that.
Yes.
Big time. But anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing despite the crappy week. We will be back for the same time as usual, so 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. The links to our socials are down below. You know, we're always on there. And the link to my previous video, 10 biggest new games coming to Xbox in July. I put that video on Monday. YouTube is an amazing website, but it's not exactly sharing it out according to my stats. So if you're curious about what's coming out this month, I've got you sorted. There's actually 14 games in that list. So hope you enjoy it. Again, the link for that is in the description down below. Hope everyone has a good day. We are out. Peace, everybody. And we're done.